Hi everyone, this is Emilie Hancock from the Main Library's Tech Team in Charleston County, South Carolina. We all know how important smartphones and computers can be to help us get things done, but they can also be so frustrating to use, especially when you feel like their default settings weren't designed with you in mind. For instance, have you ever not seen a cursor blinking on a computer screen? Or have you ever missed a notification on your phone because you couldn't hear it? Well, today's video will go over how to make your Windows 10 PC and your smartphone easier for you specifically to use. We'll start with your PC and then move on to your smartphone. I won't demonstrate everything that we're going to go over. I'll just give a brief overview and demonstrate a few things. Also, for the smartphone demonstration, I will be using an iPhone, but if you have an Android device, I encourage you to search for similar keywords in the settings that you can use to customize your experience. Without further ado, let's get started. Before we jump into a demonstration, here's a quick textual overview of what we'll cover. We'll look at features related to vision, audio, and interaction, or physical and motor experiences. If you're using a computer that has Windows 10, you'll want to go to the Ease of Access Center. To get there, you'll start at the bottom left at the Start menu. You'll go to the Settings gear, and then you'll find the Ease of Access Center. From here, we'll start with your vision features. In the Ease of Access Center, you can find the Vision subheading underneath the Ease of Access title, and that's on the left-hand side here. I'm actually going to drag my image out of the way so we can see this left-hand column a little bit better. One of my favorite things to start with is the display. I like the Make Everything Bigger option. You can see it's on the default 125% big option, but if you want, you can change that by clicking the drop down and say if I want it to go to 175%. If I click there, watch how the screen gets so much larger that way. I'm going to change it back to that recommended setting though. You can also just make the text bigger, and the way to do that is to drag this bar over to the right-hand side, and you can see that sample text getting bigger there as I drag along. I'm going to set it back at the original. You can also, if you're having a little bit of trouble with your vision or maybe with some migraine, you can dim the screen or make it brighter by dragging the bar the same way, and see how it dims as I go to the left and it brightens as I come back to the right there. Next, we'll go back to the left-hand column and look at cursor and pointer size. This is really handy if you have trouble, like I said in the beginning, to see that blinking cursor on a Word document or in an internet browser search box. Watch how if I drag the bar to the right, in the box to the left, see how that cursor changes thickness. So that's really thick over all the way to the right and then back to thin all the way to the left. I also like to look at changing the pointer size. So if you have trouble to see the pointer on the screen, you can change it to be a little bit bigger here. And then if you want to, you can also change the color or change how it appears on certain backgrounds. I'll set them back to default for now. Again, to the left-hand column, the next option is to change if you see a magnifier. So magnifier is a little bit different from making everything bigger on the display. Magnifier just zooms in on a specific part of your computer screen's display. So if I turn it on, it's going to get really big. See how large that makes it, and you can change that zoom level to like 300, for example, if you really want to. For now, I'm just going to toggle off zoom, or magnifier, I should say, and it's back to that original start. You can also play with color filters. Again, that's to the left-hand side underneath the vision subheading. Color filters just make it a little more distinct for you to see if you need to. If I turn it on, it defaults to the grayscale, but you can also play with, if you have a certain type of color blindness, say you can look at the green week color blindness filter, and it changes how your display appears, the color that come through it. I'm going to toggle that off again. High contrast is similar to color filters. It changes the colors that you see on the screen. In a moment, I'll turn that on and you'll see it kind of takes a few seconds to load up, if you will, but it's off by default. Watch as I turn it on. Everything is sort of reversed, if that makes sense. But you can turn it off, and you can even sort of select the high contrast type of colors that you see. I turn that off for now. And then lastly, there's this handy narrator feature. Narrator is just going to read what's on your screen. So if there are textual like words on the screen, the narrator just reads those words aloud to you. Next, we'll talk about some audio features. So on the left-hand side, again in that column, underneath the vision subheading is the hearing subheading. Here I've already selected audio, so if I want to, I can change the volume of the computer that I'm using by dragging the bar to the left or the right. And I like this show audio alerts visually. So if you have trouble hearing those alerts, you can actually change so that your screen or your window that you're using flashes if you have an audio alert. And that's pretty useful, especially if, like me, you kind of get into the zone sometimes if you're working. And then two, you can change your closed captions options. There's a ton of ways that you can customize your closed captions if you have those on. You can change the color of the text itself, the background, the transparency, size, and if there are any effects. Here are some options of effects. That's just sort of like an extra layer of appearance on the text. You can also choose to dim the window content, which I like. So if you have the captions on, if there's like a video playing, then you can have that video be a little bit less prominent so that the captions stand out a bit more. The last accessibility options we'll go over for Windows 10 are the interaction features, which I think sort of captures the hands-on experience of using the mouse and the keyboard for the computer. The first set of interaction options you can customize is underneath speech, which I've already clicked here. So that makes it easier to use your computer hands-free. You can sort of dictate to the computer rather than having to type with the keyboard. Alternatively, if you still prefer to use the keyboard, but maybe in a less traditional way, you can click the keyboard option here, and you can choose to use your device without the physical keyboard. So I'll show you what that looks like. If I toggle this on, it pops up this little black and white keyboard here, and I can just click on each button as I please. And I'll close that out, which you see will automatically toggle it off here. The next thing I can use is sticky keys. Sticky keys make it so that if I am usually required to press buttons simultaneously, I don't actually have to do that. So if I have sticky keys on, I can press buttons in sequence rather than simultaneously. Next, we'll look at toggle keys. So toggle keys, if you have that on, it will make a sound if you have caps lock, num lock, or scroll lock turned on or off. So that's really helpful if you sometimes like your fingers will slip, even me. If I press those keys, then it'll make a sound to notify me, no wonder I'm typing in all caps. All of a sudden I've pressed the caps lock key. Next is to use filter keys. Now that's really handy if you have like shaky hands and it's hard to get those precise mouse strokes or those precise key strokes on the keyboard. Filter keys will ignore those brief or repeated keystrokes and mouse strokes. There are a few other options as far as how shortcuts work and print screen works, but I'll ignore those for now, but I do encourage you to explore them. The next thing is to look at how your mouse works. So with your mouse, you can actually move the mouse around the screen without moving a mouse in your hand. So you can do that by turning on the mouse keys, and you can use the little numbers that's usually on one side or the other of your keyboard, and you can use them sort of directionally. So if I press a 4, for instance, my mouse will move to the left, or if I press the 8, it'll move up. Another thing I can do is to turn on eye control. So if I need to, I can control the computer with just my eyes. Of course, this requires compatible devices to be hooked up with your computer. Compatible devices include Tobii devices, and I hope I'm saying that correctly, but Tobii is spelled Tobii. Or you can also use the iTech TM5 Mini. If you're using a smartphone, you'll want to go to your settings and then navigate to the accessibility menu underneath that. First, we'll start with the vision features on a smartphone. So here I am already in my accessibility settings. For vision, you can go over options with voiceover, zoom, magnifier, display and text size, motion, spoken content, and audio descriptions. I'll start for now with zoom, which is a handy feature. If I toggle that on, it magnifies the entire screen, and see how big that gets as soon as I do that. I'll toggle it off though for now. That's a little different from magnifier, which just does a specific portion. Next, I'll talk about display and text size. I actually always have bold text on my phone, but I'll turn it off just to demo. Then if you have larger text, you can choose to make the size bigger or smaller. See how that round button at the bottom of the screen moves to change the size. Then I'll go back to those options again, and next I'll go over spoken content. Here I want to highlight speak screen, and if you have that option turned on, it's sort of like a narrator for Windows 10. So it'll read out the text on the screen. Now that's different from audio descriptions, and if I turn those on, again, if it's compatible, it only works if it's compatible. If I turn on audio descriptions, that will describe non-textual content on my screen, so maybe pictures or video. Next, let's go over the physical and motor features on a smartphone. This is equivalent to the Windows 10 interaction features. So here I am back in the accessibility menu, and underneath physical and motor, I have options to change touch, switch control, voice control, the home button, Apple TV remote, and keyboards. For now, I'll just focus first on touch. I want to point out the assistive touch feature, which if you turn that on, allows you to use your iPhone if you have trouble touching the screen, and if you need to, say, customize a new gesture, you can do that instead of having to adhere to a single tap or a double tap or a long press, having to adhere to the usual interpretation on a smartphone. The other thing I want to point out is voice control, which is a lot like dictation on a computer. So if you set that up, you can actually tell your phone what you would like it to do by speaking a command rather than by typing in a command. Next, we'll go over audio features or hearing features on a smartphone. Once again, I'm back in the accessibility settings on my phone, and if I swipe down to hearing, I can change hearing devices, sound recognition, RTT/TTY, audio/visual, and subtitles and captioning. For now, I'm just going to talk about subtitles and captioning. You can use those if whatever you are using on your phone has captions already compatible with that. You can also choose to show audio transcriptions if you have the personal assistant, the HomePod, connected to your phone. And in either case, you can change the style of those two things by checking whether you want large text or outline text. And it gives a little demo of how it's going to look if you choose each of those options. That wraps up this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. And if you have any other questions about accessibility features on your computer or smartphone, or just questions about technology in general, give the tech team a call at 843-805-6885 or email us at techteam@ccpl.org. Thanks, and I'll see you in the library.